Welcome to the Old Camera Guy Film Photography Show, where I now have over 100 episodes for you to binge watch here on YouTube. If you dig film like I do, make sure you subscribe. So in this video, we're going to take a look at a super popular cult camera, the Yashica T4. This early 90s compact point and shoot became sought after for a couple reasons. The first reason is its legendary Carl Zeiss lens. Zeiss lenses, of course, have a great reputation, and this one does not disappoint. The second reason has a much darker history, and that is its association with photographer Terry Richardson. You see, this was his camera of choice, and he gained a lot of notoriety, but for years he's faced allegations of misconduct, harassment, and outright assault with some of the women he's worked with. So these days, I'd like to think that the T4 remains popular in spite of, rather than because of, this association. Now, there were a few variations of the T4. The specific one that I had was the T4 Super D, and I did use the past tense there. Stick around after the montage, and I'll explain why I no longer have this camera. Now, before I sold it, I did actually record a short segment reviewing some of the tech specs. Let's check it out. All right, let's open her up. And there is the star of the show, that Carl Zeiss Tessar lens. 35mm lens. It's 4 elements in 3 groups, multi-coated. And it's got a maximum aperture of f3.5. Shutter speeds range from 1/700th of a second to 1 second. See the branding here? It's got the Yashica name, T4 Super D, weatherproof, and Kyocera. And the D in the name stands for data back, which you see here. On the inside, you can see it does have DX coding. And this one will read codes from 50 to 3200. If your film doesn't have a code, it will default to 100. It's got active 3-point infrared autofocus. And you can hear that auto whine there. It is powered by a CR123A battery. Up top here, default mode is auto flash. Here we've got red eye reduction. My favorite, no flash. Got the infinity setting there. Self timer here. And this is the super part of the name. This is a super scope right here. It's got a little waist level finder. It's pretty small. It's not super usable, but it is kind of nice to have it. Shutter button here. This will focus, close focus right around up to about 12 to 13 inches, or about 1/3 of a meter. Whole thing's fairly light. It's 170 grams. All right, now that we've taken a closer look at the camera, let's check out some images. I really like the images I got out of this camera. That Zeiss lens, the metering, the autofocus, it really delivers. But I did mention earlier that I actually decided to sell mine, and there's a few reasons for that. Let me start by saying there's nothing wrong with this camera, but I've got a whole bookcase full of compact point and shoots. So when I want to slip a small camera into my pocket and grab a few quick shots, I've got plenty of other cameras to scratch that itch. Now, another reason I decided to sell mine is that prices for these things have exploded in the last few years. You see them selling for $400, $500, even $600 sometimes. And of course, like a lot of my cameras, I got my T2 for $2 at a thrift store years ago. But unlike a lot of my cameras, this one was actually in pretty good shape. So I knew if I sold it, I could get some pretty good cash for it. And that brings me to the biggest reason I wanted to sell my T4, to raise money to buy another camera. Now hear me out. In 2020, with the pandemic, I found myself thinking a little bit more about my own mortality. Maybe you have too. And one of the things on my bucket list has been to venture into medium format photography. Now, I've played around with toy cameras like the Diana, the Holga, the Debonair, and these all use 120 film. And I've always wanted to try a higher resolution, more professional medium format system. And as you probably know, these cameras are not cheap. So in order to afford a 120 camera, I started selling off some of my gear, including the T4. Now, I've seen a lot of discussion on whether or not the T4 is worth spending several $100s on, and I think it really depends on your personal situation and your personality. Now, for me, I would probably not drop a lot of money on one of these because, number one, I'm cheap and don't want to spend money on anything. And number two, I've already got, again, a ton of these little compact point and shoots like the Olympus Stylus, the Stylus Epic, the Minolta AFC, the Nikon Light Touch AF. But if you've got the disposable income and you don't have a bunch of these compact point and shoots, you may want to pick up a T4, and I think you'll be really pleased with it too. Keep in mind though, there is a certain element of risk involved in buying one of these. If the electronics go bad, you just bought yourself a $500 paperweight. That'll do it for this video. If you want to catch more of my camera reviews and follow my journey into medium format photography, stay tuned to the channel. And as always, do some good, have some fun, and shoot some film.